So we are recording right now. Hi everyone, thanks for being here. Why don't we, if we can, just get started by just introducing ourselves, and then we can move on to the first question. So I'm Paul Leone, Mr. Leone to the students, and I work in campus ministry, doing the service coordination and leading retreats.
And I'm Bob, and I'm the pastoral minister for L'Arche Syracuse, and I've been in L'Arche for about 32 years now.
Who goes first?
Go ahead, Paula.
Oh, I'm Paula. I've been in L'Arche for 5 years. Pretty soon it will be 5 years for me.
I'm Dominic. I've known L'Arche for 5 years now. I came first as a volunteer from Germany, and I spent a year with L'Arche, and then I just came back a year ago to spend another year with L'Arche.
Hi, my name is Anna. I have been in L'Arche Syracuse for 2 years. I'm the resource coordinator in the Gloucester Home, and I get to share a life with Brad, which is lovely. And I think he's just about ready. We'll see if it's loud enough.
My name is Bradford Smith. I live in a large community based in Syracuse, and there are 4 homes L'Arche means to me. People WHO are not disabled, and people WHO are disabled live together.
Could you catch that?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Brad. So that leads into my first question, and I'll just say for folks who are watching, who obviously haven't met Brad uses a communicator, which you can't see in the frame right now, but is actually a fascinating and very cool device. So that's what you're hearing. Awesome, thank you. So that first question is what I'd ask everyone to answer is just, what does L'Arche mean to you? So for a lot of our students, they're going to be doing a little reading and maybe watching a little video about L'Arche. But if for those who are less familiar or haven't heard about L'Arche before, Brad kind of shared a little bit about what it is, but I want to give everyone the chance to say kind of what L'Arche is to you.
Oops, sorry.
Well, you go first.
Okay. L'Arche to me is a community faith. It's important part of L'Arche. We eat. I came to L'Arche when I was in a nursing home. I left because I was young and my family wanted me to find a good place to live. That's the second question. So let other people answer the first one. Okay. Oh, sorry. No, you're good. I was gonna answer.
Perfect. I'd like to go last on this question. So if Anna or Dominic wants to say anything.
Want to go first, Anna?
Dominic, you can go ahead if you want.
Okay, all right. So for me, L'Arche is a place where I was able to form great relationships with a lot of people, with and without disabilities, mainly through, sharing life, but also, through celebrating. I got to meet great people. So that's what I mainly connect with L'Arche.
Thank you.
L'Arche to me is just like everything good about God. I am head over heels for L'Arche, and I adore the opportunity to grow
Louder,
closer to
please.
God through friendship
Very well.
of core members.
I'm sorry, it's a little hard to hear you.
Our speaker. that any better?
A little bit.
Okay, I'll try to speak up. Is
Thank you.
that better if I speak up? Okay. Anyways, so I was saying that L'Arche to me is just so much goodness of God. I come to L'Arche and I just feel so much closer to him. I see the light of him in our core members, and I am honored by the opportunity to get to break down the stereotypes around people with disabilities under his unity with people like Brad and the other core members in my home. Yep.
Did Brad have anything else he wanted to add?
No, he's okay.
So, Paul, I don't know how much time you have. I like to tell a story.
Please.
First of all, let me say that L'Arche is a combination, a marriage between an agency and a community of faith. And that we're an international federation, and the word means the ark, like Noah's ark. So a place of welcome, a place of refuge. But I think for me, the story that most reveals L'Arche is the story of one of our core members, Eugene. Eugene came to us from an institution. He had a label of having an IQ of 20 when he arrived, and he was fairly nonverbal. And the institution had affected him, as it does anybody. If you live in an institution, it more disables you. And so it didn't take long, though, for us to discover that Eugene loved to cook, he loved to bake, he loved to barbecue, he loved to be a part of the community life. And we also discovered that he had an affinity for animals, and he had a love of prayer. And he really liked prayer, but he didn't like the large numbers who came to our prayer nights. So he was often very quiet there. So one night at a Tuesday prayer, the topic was L'Arche is impossible, meaning that we're all these diverse people living in relationships. We're an agency, we're a community. There's a lot of factors that go into building a L'Arche community. And we were discussing all of these things. And after about 30 minutes, I said to the group, so what can we do? And Eugene, sitting on the floor in the middle of the room, said, Bob, we need the Holy Spirit. Eugene, who had come to us as this person who was the client, had literally become the teacher. He was leading us into what the answer to that question was, that we needed the Holy Spirit. That's what L'Arche is. It's where our core people become leaders and we are gift finders. So to me, that's a story that really tells us a lot about what L'Arche is.
Thanks, Bob. That's a beautiful story. I don't think I'd heard that one before.
Good.
So the next question was just what brought you to L'Arche in the first place? So I think people come to L'Arche by a lot of different ways. And Paula, I think, already kind of shared how she came to L'Arche initially, but feel free to share more. And I can say for me, I came to L'Arche at kind of a transitional point in my life after college. And I had an opportunity to do L'Arche previous to when I actually came, and I passed on that opportunity, mostly because I was afraid, because I didn't know what kind of life L'Arche was. I was nervous. I hadn't had any experience like L'Arche prior to that. And so, but it was something that stayed with me in prayer. It was something that stayed in my heart that I was drawn there kind of despite that fear. And even that the nervousness and the fear being so great, I felt like maybe God was saying something to me, that there was something there for me. And so I ended up, like Bob said, joining a volunteer corps that placed me at L'Arche in Syracuse, which was a brand new city, but brand new place for me. So my journey to L'Arche was certainly a very unexpected one, even for me. So I'm just kind of curious what brought other folks to L'Arche, because I've heard many diverse stories of how people find their way to these communities.
Would you like to begin, Brad?
No, I think he needs a moment to find it.
Okay.
But I can begin.
Yep.
With him. I always have had this feeling of vocation to live life alongside people with disabilities. So what I went to college for, some of my dearest friends growing up are people on the spectrum and so forth. So L'Arche is something I felt aware of and definitely drawn to. I did a year of service, and my twin sister was doing a year of service somewhere else, and she was actually placed in a L'Arche community. And through visiting her, that seed started to grow, and I decided that it felt like where my life was leading. So I discerned L'Arche Syracuse because my parents live in Albany, and here I am. There we go. Okay. I think Brad is ready now.
I asked my Medicaid service coordinator at the time he knew of anywhere for me to live. He said that he needed to do some research on the internet. A week goes by. The following Tuesday, he comes to my home and explained everything to me about L'Arche. I don't think that I needed a second to think about IT before I could fill out the application.
Great. Thanks, Brad.
Should I go next?
Sure.
Yeah. All right. So I wanted to take a gap year after high school abroad in a community where I could live with people with developmental disabilities. I kind of just, my uncle in the 90s went to Ireland and did a similar thing, not with L'Arche, with a different community. So I looked online just for places where that was possible, and I found L'Arche. And then I just looked for, like a volunteer corps in Germany that would send me to a country. And I first applied for Canada, L'Arche Canada. And I'm very happy that I ended up in Syracuse. Yep.
Thank you.
Paula, would you like to add to your story?
Let's see. Which one is it? This one?
Yes, what about how you came to L'Arche?
I came to L'Arche in a very different way. My mom lives in Madison County, so it was Peggy Harper was the director at the time, and she asked me if I wanted to come to L'Arche, and I said, I have to find another place to live. And I was hoping that L'Arche could take me in. And finally I came and visited for a while, and I kind of liked it. So I told my mom this is where I wanted to be. So right now I live in L'Arche, Croydon. The people here are very nice. I don't consider them as just workers. They're my friend, and we pray together every Tuesday, and we eat together. We do everything together. It's like a great big family. To me, it's a great big family.
Thank you, Paula.
You're welcome.
And I'll just say that I was a Jesuit volunteer living in Tacoma, Washington, when a priest moved in next door who had just finished living a year of L'Arche in Europe. And he invited me and introduced me to the writings of Jean Vanier, and he invited me to a retreat that Jean was doing. So really the reason I ended up coming in the end was that I wanted to live my spirituality full-time, not just on Sundays. And I found L'Arche to be a place where I could grow and deepen in my spiritual journey. a place where I could learn about God, I could learn about other people, and I could learn a great deal about myself from living in community. So that's what called me, I think.
Great. So we've been using some language that is common in L'Arche of sharing time and sharing life. And I think some of our answers have started to touch on that, but I want to invite people to talk more about what it means that, and Paula started to say this so well, of like, we don't think of each other necessarily as just workers or like a work relationship, but that we share time and we share life. And so I'm hoping that you all just say a little bit more about what that means to share life or to share time instead of, having a work shift or, another way you might say that.
Paula, you're muted.
I help around the house. I make salads, I make desserts, I fold laundry. What else do I do?
You decorate?
I decorate the home when we have a celebration or holidays. I just have a lot of fun. We have a lot of people come, celebration. Patty's family comes. Nicole's family comes. My family doesn't come because they're too far and it's hard for my mom to drive. But I tell her what's going on. So she likes to hear me be positive. I just step in when I need to be. So. And all the core members too. We get together and we have a great time.
I think, Paula, the word that you didn't use that you described is you participate.
Yeah.
That to share life to me means to make a commitment to being in, if you will, right relationship with each other. It's sharing life implies kind of an attitude. It's not just a job. It's not just a way of service, but it's a place where I receive as well as give. And sharing time and sharing life is really just about building relationships, building friendships. It's concerned with finding and revealing the beauty and the giftedness of the other person. It's about an attitude of valuing difference and seeing the sacredness in each other. We, as you said, we share life in the daily, in the ordinary ways. We share meals, activities, celebrations, times of prayer. We do simple things together. It's really about being together on a journey. So you described it very well, Paula. Others?
Sure, I would just say, hanging out sounds so casual, but that's almost what it felt like the majority of the time. There's ups and downs, but I really felt like I could just, through these ups and downs, be honest with everybody around me. And we just worked through everything together. So it really just felt, or the majority of the time, it just felt like hanging out. Living life together with, I had the pleasure the first time around, the first year, to live with Brad and Paula, and I just felt very comfortable to share basically everything that was going on with me. And I felt like, Brad and Paula became great friends and listening to me and helping me out with stuff, and in return, I just helped them with their stuff. That's what it felt like.
Anna or Brad, or we can move on to the next question.
Yeah, personally, I feel very similar to what Dominic said. When you asked this question, it made me think of a story. I was taking one of our core members, Mary, to a doctor's appointment. And for the ease of the appointment, when they ask, like, who are you in relation to Mary? I say caregiver. And Mary goes, no, 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 no. We're roommates and friends. And I just like, that must have been in my first 2 months at Larch, and I loved that. And I often just like, I'm driving to share time and I'm thinking like, how blessed am I that I just get to like hang out with my friends on a Saturday like this. Like I get to spend a holiday with my pals. Like it's a good time. Brad had something he wanted to say as well.
Great.
Here at Larch, we use the terminology share time, meaning someone is working AT that time. Also, we have a terminology when you are sharing time.
Thanks, Brad. I'm going to, so I was going to ask a question about the difference between roommates and living in community. You know, I think we kind of touched on a lot of that of, you know, that it's more than just a one-way relationship, and it's certainly not just, you know, something where we're all living in the same place and going and coming together, but that there's that sharing of life and there's that intentionality and that participation. So I want to just move on to another question, that what's the most important lesson you've learned from living in L'Arche? Anyone can start.
I think Brad is ready.
Great.
The most lesson I have learned since coming to Larch is having to listen to people repeat themselves over and over like a broken record.
Is that directed at me, Brad?
Good answer.
Good answer.
No, it's absolutely true. I feel like that's, you know, and that's something that is similar to that community and family aspect, right? Of you get to know the people around you and you get to know their habits, and you kind of grow to love them for who they are over and over again.
I would say that for me, one of the things that's really been driven home is the unique and sacred value of every person. I'm really, and I'm still in a learning process after 32 years, but I think one of the calls of L'Arche is to learn to accept my own humanness. So sometimes with its giftedness and sometimes very much with its weakness. But I'm also learning, and I'm convinced this is a truth, that when we put the so-called littlest one at the center, everybody benefits. And that our society has made a huge mistake in this area. We've put the rich, the powerful, in those so-called big shots at the center, and the gap in our world keeps growing. L'Arche is a witness to something about when you put the so-called littlest ones at the center, then there's a unity that's called to, that we're called to.
Patience.
I know I've met some people who come to L'Arche and see how things are done, and you really have to have a lot of patience. There's no way outs about it. You just can't rush the assistants when they're helping you. You gotta have patience, definitely. And sometimes it can be very difficult. I agree with Brad. It can be a challenging, but we work together.
To me, one of the biggest lessons I've learned at L'Arche, and that I took from especially my first year around, because I came fresh out of high school and I was basically, you know, mostly thinking about high school things. you know, Lars introduced me to spirituality and to a language that I wasn't confronted with before. And one of the JVCs back when I was at Geldsterhome, she started something called a gratitude jar. So every Thursday or during the week, we would collect, you know, little papers where people would write on what they are grateful for, if it's, you know, a general thing in their life, or whether it is something that a person did that they are grateful for. And then every Thursday we would take turns and we would, you know, pull out those little papers or letters, and we would read them out after dinner. And you know, I just took from that the importance for myself of appreciation, of being appreciated, how it makes me feel, and wanting the people around me to feel appreciated. And I think that's just something that I took from it, and that I'm trying to live my life by, you know, just showing appreciation. And yeah, so that's what I took from it.
For me, the core members in Large Syracuse, they are funny, they're authentic, they're loyal, genuine, faithful, like every good thing that I can think of, they are. And the more that I get the opportunity to share life with these people, it almost just like breaks down the stereotypes and stigmas around disabilities. And it's teaching me that we all have them. We all have disabilities in there. Teaching me about humanness. And I often, like, I went to college for disabilities, and I learned about all the, everything about people with Down syndrome, the stereotypical things that they do, and the way that they're supposed to look. And I look at my core member, Kristen, I can't remember how a person with Down syndrome looks. I can't remember like the way someone's face is supposed to look when they have Down syndrome, because I just see my best friend, Kristen. And I love that aspect of being humbled enough to have a vocation of L'Arche.
Thank you. So I'm gonna move around a little bit on the list of questions that I gave you guys, because I think that segues really well into the question of, you know, having lived in L'Arche, what is one thing that you wish people outside of L'Arche, people in the society generally, you know, define people however you want to, but what is one thing that you wish people understood better about people who have developmental disabilities?
Let me see. I'll let Brad go first.
Go ahead. Are you ready? Do you want me to go? Sometimes I honestly feel like that there's just a lack of awareness that people with disabilities are people. I'm out in public and someone will speak to me instead of Brad, or they'll talk slow to him like he's deaf or something. And I just feel like there's a lost sense of treating humans like humans. Do you want to say your piece? Go ahead.
Our society can learn how to interact with people with disabilities better.
Absolutely. Brad, I still remember, I don't know if you remember this, because I think it was early after we were living together, but we went to go vote. And yeah, do you remember that? And the guy had obviously not received any kind of training on like how to interact with a person who had a disability who wanted to vote. And so there was this kind of big invasion of Brad's privacy, and the guy kept, you know, was working the machine for him, and he wouldn't let me, you know, be part of the interaction really at all. And so it was just kind of this like, for me, moment of of coming to the awareness that most people, when they plan something as public and as universal as voting, don't consider the, what is it, something like 10% of people who have some form of disability. And it just opened my eyes to the ways there are so many things, you know, even though we have the Americans with Disabilities Act, there's so many things that are designed and built into our society that don't consider people of different abilities.
This one?
I think, yeah, people, you said people label people with disabilities.
I think a lot of times when we are out and about, other people label us, and I've struggled with that all my life. And, you know, especially when you go to the doctors, the people ask the caregivers questions, and I'm like, wait a minute, I can tell them what I need or how I feel, or if something's hurting, or I need some prescription filled. I do speak to the nurse or the doctor who comes in. I think we do our best, and sometimes we have it right on the money. So we are people, and a lot of people think it's not for them. So I think we do pretty good.
Yeah, I would just say that, and I'm just summing up what they've said really, that people with disabilities have gifts to share with us. That in fact, they teach us to be more human, more compassionate. Oftentimes, if you talk to assistants who have been here, they will say, I learned a great deal about compassion, about patience. They teach us, in the words of L'arche, the ways of the heart. Okay? That there is a cry from the so-called person with a disability for friendship. And that cry is in each of us, and oftentimes those who are not labeled with disability don't recognize that one of their great inner cries is for friendship. So when we enter into these real relationships, we discover a lot about ourselves. And each of them is a unique human being. There is no such thing as those people with disabilities.
Yeah.
Each disability is just a person with something that maybe does put a limit on them. But as you said, Paul, often it's the society that has put the limit on. And that can be as simple as a ramp's not built somewhere. So I think people with disabilities often lead us with their gifts of welcome, their gift of trust, their gift of tenderness. And I've never experienced more forgiveness in my life than I have from the group of people who live at L'Arche. The change we go through and the number of assistants who come, and as Paula said, they all need to learn something. And our core people are often incredibly forgiving of them as they make mistakes and as they grow. And it's mutual. It's both ways, for sure.
Brad
That's a great segue into
had something
sort
he
of.
wanted to finish off with, if you don't mind.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
I get the exact same experience every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Are you're referring to what I was talking about earlier?
So just like to reiterate a little bit, Brad gets frustrated, as do I, when like we want to go out to a restaurant, but we have to think to call the restaurant to see if they have accessible entrance, bathrooms, seating, like the whole 9 yards. And so, yeah, that's definitely a daily obstacle, which it shouldn't have to be.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. The flip side that I wanted to ask is what do you wish people understood better about those who work with people with developmental disabilities or share time with people with developmental disabilities. And the reason I ask this question, and hopefully it resonates with all of you, but I remember when I worked at L'Arche that everyone I told what I did, they reacted with sort of surprise and disbelief, of like, oh, I could never do that. I even had a Catholic priest say to me, oh, good for you, I could never do that. And to me, that just belied some sort of deep misunderstanding about what kind of person is drawn to doing that. I mean, obviously it shows a misunderstanding of people with disabilities themselves, but I'm curious what you guys would say in terms of what people, you know, and these are students who are watching this are going to be volunteering in places similar to L'Arche and different day programs. So what would you say is something that people misunderstand about what kind of person or what it takes, or not quite sure how to say that, but about people who choose to be assistants at L'Arche or similar positions elsewhere?
Well, I'll just start by saying, just as what you said, we are not special, but what's happened is we're ordinary people who have found something special. You know, I think we, in L'Arche, we ask a lot of our assistants. They work incredibly hard, but every one of them would say they also receive a lot. And so it's really, again, it's a mutual relationship that's formed. So I like that idea that we're not special, but we have found something that's very special.
I often see myself confronted with the same, you know, reaction that Paul, you described earlier. And I think, I mean, most people are telling me that they're, you know, scared, or that they would be scared of the care aspect, and they kind of build it up in their head, what care looks like and all of that. And I honestly, I mean, at first, you know, it was more out of respect. You know, the person I was caring for, that I was, you know, kind of hesitant. But, you know, I felt like I got into the groove with people so quickly, that it didn't feel like, you know, like this care thing anymore. It was just, again, you know, an extension of hanging out, and we made it fun. You know, I had a blast, you know, being with Brad and Paula. We just made it so much fun. And if people would realize that it can be so much fun, and that it's just kind of an attitude towards it, you know, if you get to that point, I feel like it's great to do it. Yeah.
I feel similar. I often think of like putting myself in the shoes of Brad. I want to care for him the way I would hope someone would care for me if I found myself in a situation needing care. And we never know when we might. So a lot of stuff I do at L'Arche, although to some people they're like, it's God's work, you're amazing, like I could never do this. Sometimes it feels like the bare minimum. Like I am trying my hardest to be a great friend and companion, but isn't being a nice person and giving Brad respect and the humility he deserves just the bare minimum of being human? I don't know.
I agree.
Brad or Paula, anything you want to say about assistance?
Thanks, right?
They work very hard. Whatever I'm not able to do, they step in. We just have a good, I don't know, we have a great time. We laugh. Sometimes sometimes we're, you know, not sure, and I just step in and help them out.
Well, it's easy, right?
And a lot of times I get teased, so I get, you know, they put a smile on my face. They really do.
Thanks, Paula. And I see Brad is, I think, prepping
Yeah.
an answer. Is that right? So I just want to, Paula, what you said is probably what I would echo about, you know, coming to L'Arche. Folks had to be just as patient with me and had to guide me on what to do. And I was looking to core members for cues. And so I think some people have an impression that you need to be already a certain kind of person or have a certain set of skills or you know, a certain threshold of patience or something in order to show up. But the truth is, like Bob was saying, you're going to be taught. Like you're going to receive and you're going to be taught, and people are so welcoming that, you know, I think they make the transition easy. Sorry, Brad, go ahead.
They make IT fun being with them.
What did he say?
They make it fun being with them.
Oh,
Thanks,
being-
Brad.
being-
Let's see. We are approaching the amount of time, so I have just a couple of big questions towards the end. What would you say? So we talked about kind of the challenges of society, especially Bob started to mention, you know, some of the things that our society gets wrong that L'Arche is a witness to. But what would, if you had to pick one thing that our society, our world could learn from L'Arche, what would it be?
Go ahead, Bob. I don't know what to say yet.
Yeah. Well, I have a statement, if you will, that, you know, and some of this is from what I would call the Charter of L'Arche, but you know, the world needs to recognize and defend the rights of people who have intellectual and developmental disabilities. So we should be supporting creation of places of welcome for them in our society. We should be acting with respect, and that we should recognize that they are people first, not a disability first. And so the fundamental right of every person is the right to life, the right to care, the right to home, the right to education, the right to work. And all of us have the same need, and that is to love and to be loved. And so everybody has a right to friendship. Everybody has a right to a sense of belonging. So those are the things that we want to call our society to see that these are individuals who are human beings first.
The world could be less competitive and the people could be more encouraging of each other, and we love each other at L'Arche. That's it for me.
Dominic, Anna, or Brad? Anna or Brad?
I think Brad's ready.
Our society can learn how to interact with people with disabilities better.
Yeah.
L'Arche is certainly a place to learn that.
Yeah, to reiterate what both Bob, Paula, and Brad touched on, I pray that when I'm out in public with a core member and when people see me at L'Arche, they just see friendship, true friendship. That would be what I hope we show people.
Yeah. Do you have anything?
Okay, let's see. So the last question then that I have for us today is just Like I said, so this is for a service learning course. Some students of different grade levels are going to be watching this as part of a seminar. Most of them are going to or have done volunteer work at places like L'Arche. And they're going to be kind of learning about some of the justice issues that we've been talking about, the challenges that people face, the attitudes in society. But kind of at the close of our conversation, what would you hope that any one student or all of the students take away from this conversation? If you could give, for some of them, they're just kind of starting this journey. They'll be doing this this kind of activity for the first time, or at least are young people starting that journey, even if they've started a little bit. But what message would you hope that they take away?
I'm glad to begin again. I have a kind of a lengthy hope here, I guess. I hope that they're less afraid of difference and that they see that our society needs to be more sensitive and accepting of difference. I hope they see the giftedness and the contribution that Paul and Brad made to this conversation and how valuable it is and how they bring a unique and distinctive voice. And I've experienced that millions of times over the years. I hope they can see that L'Arche is a place that they might participate in someday, that this might stir them a little bit, and that their curiosity also might be stirred to explore these questions and this topic a little more further. I hope they hear a call, no matter whether it's to study or to be in solidarity with the poor of the world, or to take part in the struggle for justice, which I think is what L'Arche is about. By the way we live, we are taking part in the struggle for justice in our world. So, and really mostly, I hope they remember that Brad and Paula were a big part of this conversation today.
And I think it's important to celebrate each other. We celebrate birthdays, anniversaries, which I've never did before. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but it's also a lot of fun. So I think we do our best to make the other person happy. That's it for me.
Thank you.
I would love for them to see that whatever kind of service they might end up doing, that all of it could be a great opportunity for them, and to see it as such, to be open and reflective of whatever they are doing, and to act and participate, in whatever kinds of services they can do. Any kind of volunteer work is great, I think. May it be L'Arche, may it be somewhere else.
Thank you.
I feel like all of the big points that I was thinking of have been beautifully mentioned already. And so I guess it just leaves me with one small thing instead of a big thing, but I hope that there is not a fear, and that there is an invitation just to say hello. If you see someone with a disability, I feel like growing up, people were always taught, like, don't stare, don't point, or, like, try not to look, but there is a really wonderful invitation here to just say hi. And yeah, and Brad is typing something out as well.
While we're waiting for Brad, oh, sorry, go ahead, Paul.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I wanted to go back to a point that we skipped over, and that is how important I think community is in all of this. And that community really is about having a shared mission, a shared sense of values, and a place where you really can participate. So get involved to really push Dominic's point. That can be so helpful to an individual and to the person themselves and to the world. But we're not a cult, okay? We're not just going inward. L'Arche is a community where yes, there has to be some building of the inner parts, but it also then means we're welcoming and we want to be in interaction and in relationship with the rest of the world as well. So, but that sense of mission can be so important, a sense of purpose, which is one of the things that I think L'Arche has.
Yeah, that's similar to what I was going to say, Bob, and I think that's because a lot of this stuff I learned from you, and I learned from Brad, and I learned while I was at L'Arche. But just that, the way I think about it is L'Arche is kind of a microcosm of the whole world. Like it's, you know, we come together, we're different, we're from a lot of different places, we have different levels of ability, and we try and support and care for each other. And I think it's a witness to the world of just a different way of doing things. You know, that we don't have to do things the way that, like Paula said, so competitive. You know, that there's a way where we collaborate and we're a community. And I hope that people take from this conversation, and I'll let Brad end our conversation, but I hope people take, you know, a sense that there's just a different way to do relationship, and there's a different way to do friendship, and there's a different way to do community, and that, you know, looking for those opportunities like a lot of these students are going to do is such an invitation into that. Brad?
My hope that you never know if you like something if you don't try.
Perfect. Thank you, Brad. And thanks to all of you. I really appreciate you taking the time in the middle of your day to share L'Arche with these students. And I'm sure they would thank you if they could. So thanks, everyone. I'm going to stop the recording, and much appreciated.